John asked, how many wraps of Teflon tape do you put around threads? Well, today I'm going to answer that question along with giving you some other tips about threads. Okay, if you've seen my other video that I've linked here regarding what's in my tote, you saw me mention about the Teflon tape. We got 1/2 inch, 3/4, and 1 inch that I carry in that cup. You know, I used to think that the width of the Teflon tape had to do with the thread size, like 1/2 inch pipe, 3/4 inch pipe, and 1 inch pipe, and that actually isn't the case. It's somewhat related, but it just is simply the width of the tape, and that's all. There's times when 3/4 inch thread requires 1/2 inch Teflon tape because the width here is so narrow. Same thing goes for 3/4 and 1 inch. Sometimes 1 inch threads only require the 3/4 inch tape. So it really all depends. And then there's also, we're going to go over Teflon paste. This is Christie's. It's really good. I use this, but I also use Rector Seal when it's available, a Rector Seal brand. And I have that listed on my tools page on my resources site that you can go to. The link is down below. In this situation, John was asking how many wraps. And I gave him a general rule of thumb of 3 wraps. And that's true. What I normally use 3 wraps for is when I'm doing male adapters for sprinkler valves. So we'll go, and there is a right way and a wrong way to put the Teflon tape. There is an upside down to it. So you want to make sure that it's coiling off this way. Hold it down. Now, using my pinky, see if you can see that. I'm using my pinky to hold it down now. Use my other finger to press down on it so it doesn't slip. And we got 1, that makes 2, and 3. And then we just use the thumb to tear it, and that's it. Now that would be good for an anti-siphon valve, for instance, threading that in. And how tight do you turn that? Well, I had somebody at Hunter tell me a few years ago to just go hand tight, but I found that hand tight is actually relative because everyone's strength is different. Once I get it hand tight, then I'll grab it on the hex part of the male adapter. And we're going to go snug on it. Okay, it stopped right there. That's as far as I'm going to take it. There's still threads showing. Sometimes you'll thread these on and there'll be threads showing. Sometimes there won't be any threads showing. I don't know, inconsistencies, but that's as tight as it could go. I'm not going to take it any further than that. The same thing goes with if you're going to install something like this. This is Hunter's pressure regulator and filter, Y-filter assembly. It's all one piece. We're going to weight that down so it doesn't blow away. And with this, it's easier to take the filter can off. Now I'm competing with blowers. See how quick I can get this video done. Okay, on here, we're going to go 1, 2, 3. Now this is the side that goes into the valve, the sprinkler valve. This is on the outlet side of the valve. And we're going to screw that on. We're going to do the same thing. We're just going to go till it's basically hand tight, and then we can take it a little further with the channel locks until this thing is lined up like this. You can line up the seam right there and it's going to be straight. Doesn't matter whether you're doing it on that kind of valve or an inline valve like this. That's a 1 inch, but I'm just showing you the example. Okay, same thing. So here's one of the differences, is when you're screwing PVC to brass. And this is just my experience. I'm not saying this is the way everyone should do it, but PVC to brass, I go 4 wraps. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then I add a little protection on top of that. And I know there'll be controversy with this, but I found it to work really well for me. And that is, I use the Teflon paste on top of that. It only takes a little bit. You don't want to put a whole bunch on here. So I just barely get it on there. I go a little bit there, a little bit on the opposite side, and I leave it at that. It doesn't take much. I don't carry the Teflon paste in my tote all the time. That's why it wasn't in my other video. Then I just put that on. Then I use my channel locks to get it snug. And that's it. Any tighter than that, and you're taking a chance on this thing splitting over time. Or if you're gonna, you can do the same thing. If you're gonna use Schedule 80 under that garden valve, then you can do the same thing with this. I didn't know I was going to be competing with a blower. I didn't even see them across the street. They're hidden behind bushes. I still can't even see them. So anyway, another thing you'll want is a brush like this. The scraper part really isn't that big a deal. I just came with it. This is frankly set up for a barbecue, but I like this. It's got the short handle. And I picked this up at Ace Hardware. It's the only place I've been able to find these. It's made by Warner. And if you're gonna take the threads off of here, sometimes it doesn't wanna come off real easy. So you can use this to, that rust powders because we've had some rain and it's rained on the brush. So then it just kind of shreds the Teflon tape. And it doesn't hurt the threads at all. As long as you go in that kind of motion. You can go the other direction too to loosen things up. That gets it cleaner, and then you can come back. If you want to get it even cleaner than that, you can use the toothbrush to get that fine stuff out of there. Another thing to mention is that if you're doing this just like I'm showing you, and you're still having problems with this leaking here, dripping, then the water pressure is probably too high. In every situation I've been in where that's been a problem, where I've done it correctly, and then I'll redo it a second time if needed, and it still leaks, it's because the water pressure is too high. And the only way to fix that is to put a pressure regulator, a brass pressure regulator in line before the sprinkler valves. And you can do everything you want. You can put lots of Teflon tape on here, Teflon paste, and it won't make any difference. This thing will still leak. So you gotta make sure that your pressure is correct on the line before it gets to the sprinkler valves. Another item I'd like to bring up is about shutoff valves. I only use threaded shutoff valves when I absolutely have to. What I prefer is these slip ball valves, because then you don't have to worry about leaks at the threads. Anytime I can glue something, I'd rather glue it and do it correctly than to have a threaded situation where I have to worry about whether it's going to leak. But I'm not a fan of using valves that are slip, where you have to glue into them, because then you can't reuse the valve if there's a reason to change things. I'd rather have the threaded valve so that I can take this off and reuse this if needed. If you're in a situation where there's a riser way down in the ground, down in the hole that you've dug, and you just need to put a cap on it, I don't hesitate to use the Teflon seal. Ultimately, you're supposed to put this on the male threads, but in these situations, you know, it's the end of the line. I just go ahead and put just a little dab of that inside the threads there, and then go ahead and screw that onto the riser that you have down below. And the reason that makes it easier is because a lot of times when that riser, that thread is way down in the ground, it's difficult or impossible to get the Teflon tape around it like that. So I just use this and screw it on like that. And that's all I have to share about Teflon tape, the tools, and the Teflon paste. I hope that helped. Thanks for watching.